On this episode of Locked On Canadiens, who are the Canadiens going to roll out at center this October?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1124 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available on YouTube and wherever you subscribe to podcasts. So subscribe in the place you want to hear us. Doing that supports the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I am Ian Boisvert, known on the socials as @MaybeIt'sIan, and I am joined by someone with a birthday today, Laura Saba, also known as the active strip. Laura, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I've been really, really spoiled. So by the time you're listening to this, it's past my birthday, but my day was great. Thank you so much for asking.
Awesome. Well, I know our day is going to be great too because we have a bunch of mailbag questions. You guys did not. It's Friday. I've got the summer shirt on. We're just ready for an August weekend. So let's jump into these questions. Our listeners really showed up and showed out like they always do. So let's get into it.
They definitely did. And we're going to start with our good friend DF Pendries. Who are the 4 centers on opening day?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because I think I think that the main character we're focusing on as someone that could push for a spot is Owen Beck.
Right. So wait, let's get the ones that are for sure out of the way, right? 100% Nick Suzuki unless he dies in the summer. Same thing with Kirby Dach. Unless his leg falls off, Kirby Dach is 100% going to be that.
Which we can't count out. We can't count that out knowing his health history. Like he might get trench foot. I have no idea.
So those 2 are for sure, but like the bottom 2, that we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're paying Christian Dvorak a bunch of money, right? He's going to be healthy, assuming. And, you know, if the Canadiens have their way, they're probably going to try to prop up his value a little bit and try to ship him off at the trade deadline. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. You know, he's not quite a second-line center. I think he's a really good third-line center on this hockey team. So I think he fills out that third-line spot. And then on the fourth line, we're looking at Jake Evans. Who is just sort of, I don't know, I think he was born as a fourth-line NHLer. And that's not to disparage the player because I really like the player, but that's the role he plays and he plays it so well, right? Like, I find it hard to believe someone's going to displace him, but if someone's going to, Owen Beck might have a decent shot at it, no?
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be a decision the Canadiens are going to have to make because for a long time, you kind of, you know, Jake Evans is one of their success stories, drafted in a very late round, you know, homegrown, et cetera, like ended up as a permanent NHLer. And he's really good at the thing he does. It's just that I feel like Owen Beck does more things, if that makes sense. And so, you know, what do you do with Jake Evans? Do you try to get value for him? How much are you getting for a fourth liner? Even a good one, right? What do you do? Do you send him down? Do you rotate that spot? I feel like, as you pointed out a couple of episodes ago, they're a big fan of rotating. They like to do rotating. So that is a possibility. But I think that there's a non-zero chance that they are able to ship Christian Dvorak out. I don't think it's as hopeless a case as other people do think it is. I personally feel like there's going to be something that they're going to be able to do. They have not, or they've talked about not using that buyout spot on him. Like, I don't believe they flat out denied it, but they said things like there were no plans on using that for now, et cetera, et cetera. But they do have it at their disposal should they require it. So I do think that opening night, like the question was on opening night, like it's going to be Nick Suzuki, Kirby Dach, Christian Dvorak, and Jake Evans.
Yeah, and think about, like, I think it's important to remember who the Canadiens are playing on opening night because they always play the same team. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think this year it's in Montreal, though, right? Like their first game is a home game.
Yeah,
Either way,
it's been a couple years. I think this is the second year in a row if that happens, but it's normally in Toronto, and it always goes the same way.
it's bonkers. I was about to say, like, it's not the kind of game you would want to throw Owen Beck into. I know it's not his first NHL game because he did play. Was it last season? It must have been
It was
last
the season before.
The season before. I mean, man, the time just doesn't go anywhere. That's wild. Because remember, they called him up. It was an emergency recall. I think he was still playing for Peterborough then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's just not the kind of game I would want to put him in as a young player. Those are games where you say, Jake Evans has been there, done that. Let's let him play the game that he can play here and get him in against a softer matchup.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's totally fair. So I feel like we're kind of in agreement on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm about to get booed. So our next question from DF is, can we all agree as humans to find whoever writes a feature on Hudson called Life in the Fast Lane and throw things at them? You know what? I actually think that's a good title for a feature on Lane Hudson.
The first thing I thought of was that had to have come from NHL.com. Like the NHL.com editors, I know I don't know how many times this has to be repeated. The people who write the articles do not always come up with the headline. They almost rarely come up with the headline.
And usually, if you do come up with a headline, a copy editor will go in and change it for you.
Right. So, I mean, like, the NHL.com editors are sort of notorious for this, of, like, making these, like, it's always wordplay. It's always kind of, tongue-in-cheek, punny nonsense. Some of them are funny. I think this is, like, right in the middle of the road, right? Like, it's like, yeah, that's about right. It's the first time I've honestly seen someone make that joke with his name, right? Like, I don't know that I've seen a bunch of that.
But you know what? He's probably going to force all the reporters' hands, or NHL.com's hands, like once he makes the NHL, because he is pretty fast. His name is Lane. There's going to be curiosity about him. There's going to be a feature done on him. So I think it's pretty fair to say that it's coming. I don't think that the person who comes up with that needs to have things thrown at them unless they're like stuffed animals or something like that. And then finally, in our DF Pendry segment, which we really do appreciate. I love when the questions are multiple because like we can, we can go on in all sorts of tangents and all sorts of topics. And this one is my favorite question that we've received in a while. Who would you rather fight? The mascot Metal, but he can control Metal. Is it by Magneto or Magneto? It's Magneto, right? Sorry, everybody's gonna like be booing me. I don't know anything about any superheroes.
Yeah, I believe it's Magneto. I'm not a superhero person either, so we're on the same team there.
Yes. Okay. So, and then your other option is fighting Arber Xhekaj. Who do you want to fight?
I'm still gonna fight Metal because one, he's been in a lot of fights that have been recorded and put on the internet, and I don't think he's won one of them. And I can only imagine that even if he can control Metal, it's only going to get worse for him. He's going to like take up two like big metal girders and crush himself. Like I can't imagine it goes well for him. Arber, on the other hand, is legitimately terrifying, and I'd rather have him on my team than against me.
I absolutely agree with you. And for me, like I think the biggest thing is that Arber Xhekaj has like he's not tripping all over himself, right? Like the way that he fights is with so much poise, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like he does not lose his mind when he's fighting. He does it so gracefully, and it's like, and I think that actually like makes it even worse because as the opponent, you're not only terrified of this guy, he's also like clearly not scared of you. And you get even more and more heated trying to like land a punch or trying to like get the upper hand. So for me, like in my mind, I think Arber Xhekaj is like, if there's any way you can avoid fighting him, that is exactly what you do.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember his first NHL fight in the regular season against Zach Kassian?
I do remember that now. I was going to say, wasn't it against an Ottawa Center? But no, that was in the rookie showcase, and then they all lost their minds. Yeah. Now I remember it was against Zach Kassian.
I remember watching it and going, like, my first thought was, oh, he's going to get killed. Like, I was really worried. And then he grabbed him, and immediately the script flipped, and it hasn't turned back since then, right? Like, it was like, oh my God, he's going to get killed, to, oh my God, he's ragdolling this guy. Like, So, yeah. Like, I really think that, like, and I'll turn this into a serious question. Like, of the enforcers in the NHL, there aren't many of them that I would consider heavyweights, but he's right up there, right? Like
Absolutely.
the Rempe, the Matt Rempe Arber Xhekaj fight this year that is inevitably going to happen will be pay-per-view television. Like it's going to be one of the highlights of the year.
Yeah,
no question.
Absolutely.
All right. Up next, we're going to talk about a game that we would want to go back and relive. But first, we have to give you a word from our sponsor, eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, we are back. Laura, let's before we jump into the next question, I do have to remind everybody, or thank everybody again for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with the national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts like Laura over here, and local insight on every team in the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Laura, where are we headed next?
We're going to talk about, we're actually heading back into the past, I guess.
Nice.
Our good friend of the show, KCD, if you could go back in time and attend any Habs game, which would you choose?
I want to let you start this one off because I have a kind of out of the box one that I think
Interesting.
I think may bother some people, but it means a lot to me. So go for it.
I want to attend one of the all-time Bruins game. You know, the Don Cherry, like
Yeah.
I wanna attend like that game or one of those very many like all-time classic games between the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins. Like back when, you know, that was the thing. That was the only thing. There were no other rivalries in the NHL. I mean, there were, but they didn't matter, right? Like that rivalry. Obviously, a comeback game would be great. Any one of those games, I think, would be my favorite or would be my top choice. To wish obviously I wasn't alive in 77 or whatever it was, 71. All of those games, all of those begin with a 7. I did not exist then, so that's the era. And any game from those playoff series between the Habs and the Bruins, that's what I want to attend.
I also have a Habs Bruins game, but I think it's a little different. Mine would be, and I know the exact date of it, is December 4th, 2009, the Centennial game. And the reason I would want to see that game isn't really for the game itself. It was for the warm-up. Because if you remember, all of the Canadiens greats came out and took warm-up.
I was there.
The way that, what, you were there?
I was there.
Laura, that's so awesome. We have to talk about this at some point. That's, like, I mean, I have you see Ken Dryden's mask over my shoulder if you're on YouTube. Like, he was saying that like they didn't know what they were supposed to go out there and do, and they were like, well, we have pucks, why don't we start shooting them? So like Ken Dryden, who probably hasn't played a hockey game in very many years, is just taking shots on the Bell Center ice again, and then they're all lined up at center. I believe Ryan O'Byrne retired the number 3. He just took all 3 shoulders at that exact moment for was it Elmer Locke? I believe it was.
Yes, it was Elmer Locke that got his number.
And then of course, like one of my favorite players growing up was Mike Camilleri, and he scored. I think it was a hat trick in that game. I want to say he had a hat trick. They ended up winning 5-1, I believe, and they beat the crap out of the Bruins. Like what like that to me, like I think it's important to keep your inner child happy that game will always make my inner child very happy. Like that was the tops as far as a regular season game goes.
I looked up the year for the game that I wanted to attend. It was 1979.
There you
It's the
go.
too many men game. I kept calling it it's the too many men on the ice game, like the Don Cherry, everything. So I was at that Centennial game. It was my friend had tickets to it. He was a season ticket holder. He had access, and then somebody offered him better tickets. So he offered them to me. I was at work. I had to scramble because I believe it was a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken. So it was hard to kind of, everyone had made their plans, but one of my best friends and I went. We met two guys from Boston there that were there. They're brothers. And we made friends with them, but, friendly rivalry. And I just remember the moment that they took the ice. And I remember that because it felt so like I had goosebumps. It like the emotion of that moment. And it's hard because it's sports, right? Like you always think sports is that the stakes aren't that high here. It's just sports. It's history. Like you didn't watch those players for the most part. A lot of us that were in the arena, those weren't the players we watched growing up. They had retired by the time we were born. And so, they were famous for other things in a lot of cases, or like they opened a car dealership, or like we're a real estate agent now or something, right?
Right.
And so that was just absolutely incredible. Like being in that moment, being there in that moment, the energy, like it truly felt like you were going to be able to go back in time and experience a game like that night.
I don't even feel jealousy. I'm so happy you were there. That's awesome.
I'm so convinced that I'm going to get to go to a Stanley Cup winning game because I got to go to Saku and I got to go to this. So the fate, like whatever happens, the universe is going to align in such a way that when the Canadiens next lift the Stanley Cup, I will be in the building.
Yeah, you got dealt a great hand there. That's really awesome. Well, also, like we have to know that anytime Laura's at a game, something incredible can happen. So
or something really bad. So I don't know if you remember the game. So this was in obviously the Halak playoff run, the game that Carey Price got chased from the nets for good against Washington. Like it was in Montreal, and I paid so much money for that. And I was at that game too. So. It's kind of like it's kind of a double-edged sword. But if anybody wants to sponsor my attendance at every Canadiens, Stanley Cup final game that they ever play going forward, like I'm open to it.
I'll get Jeff Molson on the phone. I'm sure he'll hook us up. All right, where are we headed next?
We have honestly, we've got a lot of really great questions, which I absolutely okay. I feel like this is going to cause a debate, so I'm going to leave it to the next segment. But Dill asks, who's one player that you guys would want Montreal to acquire, a name that has not been mentioned yet? So it can't be Rutger McGroarty. It can't be, Natchez is off the table now. It can't be Patrick Laine. One player that you guys would want Montreal to acquire. And there's no other limitations on this, so we could talk about reacquiring someone if that's your jam.
Who do you have in mind?
Oh, I was just thinking I want Philippe Danault back. I know they have too many centers already.
Yes. 1,000%.
Yeah.
That would be righting a cosmic wrong, right? Like, you should like that.
Christian Dvorak, bye.
Yes, Christian Dvorak to the sun. Like, it's fine. Bringing Phil Danault back, like, Marc Bergevin did a lot of things wrong, right? Like a lot of things. This is a half-hour show. We do not have the time. One of the things that he consistently did wrong was hardball guys who wanted to stay here, and it drove me nuts. It drove Andrei Markov out of the league.
Yeah,
like that,
him back for a 1,000th game. That is going to kill me forever.
It's like Mike Modano in when he finished his career in Detroit, and he ended on $14.99 because Babcock scratched him in one of the last games of the year. Phil Danault's a great answer for me. I'll go with the new guy, Kent Johnson out of Columbus. This year didn't go as planned for him. He started the season scratched. He ended up in the AHL at some point. He came back to the NHL, was looking good, then got hurt. And it just feels like there might not be a lot of warm and fuzzy feelings between the player and the team over there. Granted, he's a 5th overall pick from just a few years ago. Like, but maybe that's a Kirby Doc-esque trade, right? Like, and I'm not saying I don't have any kind of inside information. No one tells me anything. But like that would be a guy I would target. Yes, he's small, but he's also incredibly offensively gifted. Like that's the kind of player that the Canadiens should be like falling over themselves to go get. And that's why they're amassing all of these assets, is to make a play at a player like that. So, but it's a great question because I think the guy that they end up getting is going to be someone none of us expect.
Right. I think I 100% believe that. Like all the smoke, it's not leading to fire.
Correct. All right. We will be right back to talk about the PWHL. But first, as we said earlier, the sponsor of today's episode is FanDuel. I love sports. I know you love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Laura, I wanted to bring this up. I know it's not a mailbag topic, but I know it's important to the both of us, and it should be important to people who love hockey in Montreal. The PWHL logos and team names have been highly anticipated for a little bit now. They played a season without them, and there were some reports leaking out that they've been delayed again. We're still waiting on logos. I think it was Haley Salvian of the Athletic who had pointed out that she had heard from a source that they're not going to be released until September. I just think it's interesting because that league, they got the hockey so right. Like the gameplay, the rule sets, like the jailbreak rule is like one of my favorite things hockey has done, bar none, in a very long time. It's just so awesome.
And media wise and accessibility wise.
Yeah. And in the States, all of these games stream for free on YouTube. Like that is an unbelievably smart idea. Like it's just, they've made it so easy. However, the last few months have not been great for that league. All of the things that happened in Minnesota where they essentially forced out the general manager and hired somebody that not a lot of people are really thrilled with. And I think it was a giant missed opportunity for the PWHL to announce their team branding and logos and everything in August, when I don't know if you know this, Laura, there's not anything happening in hockey right now. Like they could have owned the state. I don't know what your thoughts are on the way with like that the PWHL has sort of handled business in their first year.
So I always wonder about why those things are, because you only ever hear about them after the fact. And this is obviously like with women's leagues, there's been a few versions. There's been, a lot of issues going like back with the previous leagues. And then you hear after the fact about how much dysfunction was involved in whatever decision or whatever downfall or whatever, so for me, I feel like there's got to be something there. Like, are there licensing issues? Is someone holding on to a team name so desperately that the other teams have to wait? But I really, I agree with you because if they do launch in September, yes, September is the season and hockey comes back, but they're competing with so much more. And I know it's, we're supposed to be very, very, like treating these leagues equally, et cetera. But you have this opportunity when there's a dearth of news to really dominate the news cycle and get people excited and interested, right? We're seeing with the Olympics, I'm not actually sure if it's the same in the US, but it should be. We're seeing in the Olympics, especially in Canada, it's like women are dominating the sports headlines, right? A lot of our stars here in Canada, a lot of the people that are making the history, they are female athletes. Everybody watches women's sports. Everybody can be invested in women's sports. So to me, there's an opportunity here for a momentum. And I don't know, I'm looking at the States too. And the women are doing pretty well there as well. So it feels like an opportunity to just remind people that this is an opportunity to watch something, that this exists, that, a way to connect with people, right? I like that logo. Actually, I don't like that logo, but you feel passionate enough about the team to care about the logo or the team name, etc. Also, like, there's been like so much speculation about what each team's going to be called. They seem to have like, created, and we don't know if it's them that created it or if it's like fans that created like team names or X accounts, Twitter accounts to kind of, match with the team later should they get the trademarks or whatever. It feels like so much work has been done already. What is going on that is preventing this from happening right now? Like, there's got to be something.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I like, I'm a big supporter of this league. I watched all the playoffs. I attended a game this year. It's not easy for me to get to them because the closest one is in Bridgeport. And like, it wasn't that fun to be at that game. I mean, the game was great, but it was the least attended game of the season. They have to figure out that New York team, man. They can't be called New York and play in Connecticut. Like, it just doesn't work.
Absolutely. Like, because like you're looking at the followership everywhere, and it's like it's diehard, right?
Yeah, yeah. But in supporting them, I'm not going to treat the league with kid gloves. Like they're going to be one of the grown-ups in this the sports environment. They got to act like it. So. It's disappointing, but I'm sure we'll get them soon enough. All right, let's jump back into a couple more questions before we call it quits.
I've got a question from our good friend Scott, RIP. And he wants us to, well, hold on. He had an FMK question. And okay, FMK, grilled cheese, pizza, poutine.
Yeah. The F stands for friend, right? We're going to call that friend.
Absolutely, yes. That's what we're calling it.
He's been gone 20 minutes, and he's trying to get us to break some rules on this show. I did think about this, and I believe I responded to Scott and said, this will divide us.
Okay. I'm interested to hear what you say first.
I am going to kill grilled cheese. As much as I love grilled cheese, I'm killing grilled cheese. I am friending poutine, and I am marrying pizza.
Okay.
Where are you
at? I am marrying poutine because I honestly, if it weren't for like clogged arteries and high blood pressure, I would eat poutine every single day and not get tired of it. Like, that's like, I get tired of, like, if I have a little bit too much ice cream, I can't have ice cream for 2 weeks, right? Like, I'm somebody, like, food affects like very, very quickly, but poutine, like, I can have an OD of poutine and then have it for my next meal. Like, I love, like it's a Quebecer cliche, but yes, poutine is my Mary. Okay. And then this one is going to be a bit controversial. I would pizza, only because I know, like, bad pizzas, even bad pizzas,
sure,
good pizza or whatever. But a grilled cheese to me is like, it feels like, like you have a bad day, like you have a grilled cheese. It's like, it's comforting, but it's also like, it's something that's so easy to make. So I do still want it in my life. So it wasn't really a matter of effing grilled cheese. It was just really a matter of like, sure, can I live without pizza? Yes. Can I live without grilled cheese? No.
I think a lot of it too is geography, right? Like, the poutine up by you is probably a lot better than the stuff that's down by me in Connecticut, and vice versa. The pizza down here is New Haven is like the pizza capital of the East Coast. So like, I think that plays into it a lot. I have a lot of nice pizza places around me. I have exactly 0 poutine places around me. So yeah, that's where
you got to come to Montreal. We got to fix so many things, like so many things. You got to see a game at the Bell Center. Yeah.
Yeah, we got it. You want to get in one more question before we hit the road?
We have time? Yes.
I think so.
We do. All right. So we've got, there's a question that I'm going to tackle. I'm going to be doing a solo episode for Monday, and it's about like what makes this group of prospects different than any previous overhyped year or hyped year. And that one is going to be a topic that I do tackle in a longer segment on Monday. And then we've got 2 fun questions. They're pretty quick. So Karina asks us, who will be the surprise player that makes it out of camp that nobody expects? I'm going to say Sean Farrell just because he's flown under the radar so long.
I'm going to say Philip Machar because I think it would be a really great story and a guy that I think in the public eye needs a little bit of a turnaround. So Phil Machar.
Great. Okay. So then we've got another question from Bren Medov. Is this Brendan Gallagher and the Medov? Like, who's the Bren?
Anyway. I think so.
And like, so Bren Medov is their display name, and then their username is Slavkovsky. So.
Yeah.
All right. Which current Hab do you think would be most likely to win an Olympic event if they were to compete, and which event would they win? Assuming actual ice hockey is out of bounds for this question.
I'll stick with Summer Olympics too. I'm gonna take Arber Xhekaj in the shot put. I think he could launch that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I was thinking javelin. I know he's not very tall. Is javelin a standalone event, or do you have to do it as part of the decathlon?
No, it's a standalone. Yeah,
it's a standalone. Okay. Nick Suzuki, because his focus is incredible. Yeah.
So I think he can medal in a bunch of sports. Yeah. I think that's a great pick.
Nick Suzuki, yeah, because he'll keep doing it and practicing it until he becomes the best at it, right? That's right. The thing. So yeah, so that's my answer.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thanks so much for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, head over to Locked On NHL to see what else is going on around the league. As a reminder, we are free and available everywhere you get podcasts, including YouTube, so be sure to subscribe to Locked On Canadiens so you don't miss an episode. You can follow the show on Twitter at @LO_Canadiens or email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can find Laura at The Active Stick, and you can find me at Maybe It's Ian. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time.